everyone, and welcome to All Night ASMR. I'm your host, Robert Knight, and this is the Friday upload. If you are looking for something to help you relax, unwind from a long week, or just generally kick back, I am happy to be here for you. I would also love it if you could like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for this channel if you enjoy what I'm doing. And comments are always appreciated. It gives me great ideas of what to do for future videos. And you may have noticed things are a little bit slower around here lately. And I mean, it's really no secret. I've mentioned it in a couple of videos, but I just want to say this is temporary while I just kind of find some balance with some things. And hopefully I am going to be getting back to at least 2 to maybe 3 uploads a week. But while things are a little slower, I do want to just promise you that I will always have the Friday upload up. This is consistently what I think people enjoy the most, so I want to stick with it and do a few more things, like maybe some longer videos. I mean, even these have been a little bit short the last couple of weeks. When I started this channel and when I started doing these Friday videos, my plan was to just generally ramble about my week and things that I've been going on, things that I've been thinking, things like that. I kind of got the idea from also Maya ASMR, who does some similar videos, or has in the past. I'm not sure if she's still doing them, but where it's just kind of, like soft-spoken, rambling, talking, things like that. It's a really cool idea. So that's where I got this inspiration, and also the inspiration for the secret code emoji, which you will see at the end of this week's video as well. The challenge that I've run into is that right now my life is pretty boring, aside from some things that are a little too personal for the channel, and also a lot of things that are way too heavy for the channel. So it's made it a challenge to come up with themes. And I have had some ideas. Some of you have had some great comments about things that I've been either put into or have been working on putting into videos for the rest of the week. But I would also like to open up the idea that if you are interested in bringing up ideas for topics, questions you have, advice you want, anything like that for the Friday show, I'm totally happy to hear those suggestions. And I was kind of thinking about, well, what do I want to do for tonight? And really kind of holding to the theme of what I want these videos to be, I look to what I do in the rest of the week, and I figured that I could maybe lend some employment advice for those of you that might find yourself in situations where you're looking for a job, at least in the US market, which is pretty tough right about now. So as best I can, I want to impart that advice onto you, dear job hunter. And the first thing that I'll start with, resumes. I had a resume that I either just made really sparse and tried as hard as I could to just keep it on one page, Or I would go into a lot of detail and it'd be like 5 or 6 pages. Nobody wants to see that. The advice I was given was really to focus the majority of the content in your resume into your experience and any sort of achievements or milestones that you've gained along the way that you can put on there. So like awards, maybe some good things with numbers, like people love to see statistics on resumes apparently. And anything that really speaks to skills you've gained through your experience, and of course your scholastic experience as well. So what I did is I made a 2-page resume that is probably like 80% focused around my experience. And then the remaining parts of it, I included some references and some skills and just some different programs and things like that I use occasionally, including things like editing software and kind of the stuff I do here. And yeah, keywords are good. And overall, just focus mostly on your experience and include some good keywords and skills and achievements that you've gained along the way. Next, and a little bit more substantial, is the interview process, which I put a lot of work into. You really want to play to the strengths on your resume, but you also want to match them to a job description. Whenever I apply for a job, I save a copy of the job description. If I get an interview for that job, before the interview, I will sit down with the job description and really distill it down to its key points, some key terms and things like that I think that they're going to want to hear in the interview. And then I will look at that compared to my experience and try and find answers, or not really answers, but more stories around each of those key points from my reduced version of the job description. And you want to use something called the STAR format, which is an acronym for situation, task, action, response. It's essentially a way to make sure that when you're giving some details about something, whether it's an answer to an interview question or relaying something that happened, things like that, that you are providing a comprehensive look at what you're trying to describe. So you're describing the context that you enter into the story you're telling, the task, which is what you are assigned or like what you're doing to respond to that situation, the actions that you took to complete that task, and then the response, like the results of what you did. That way it packages it up very nicely to, anything you're doing. This is not something that's necessarily just restricted to interviews. But what I've found is with this advice that I feel a lot more prepared and a lot more familiar with my own experience and things like that when I go into an interview. And you can save all of these as you kind of build out this library of these little stories. And then eventually you get to a point where whenever you go through a job description, you can just kind of match up this library of content you have to what you're going to be talking about. The next key when you get into interviews is to do the same thing for any questions you ask in an interview. So this trick is to kind of set yourself up with things that you're really proud of, but might not necessarily be listed in the job description, or things that might be important that you recognize will come with a job that you want to make a chance to talk about. And the secret is, when you're in an interview and they ask you if you have any questions, it's not an opportunity for you to ask about them. It's an opportunity for you to set them up to talk more about yourself. And that tends to typically really, really impress people. So those are the biggest things for in the interview. And also, if there's a job that I really like that I interview for, or even just kind of like, if I'm being honest, I will send a thank you email afterwards, which some people like, some people don't. I think it's one of those things that you have to kind of feel out. I was strongly encouraged to do it every time, and I've found that some people don't really respond to it as well as others. Now, as far as finding jobs, I tend to just kind of scrape every corner I can. LinkedIn, honestly, is not that great, but it does allow you to connect with people. And I've found that if there are opportunities for you to network, having connections that you can talk to, like that you have some sort of rapport with, can really help you find jobs that might not be things you would come across otherwise. And don't just stick to Indeed or Glassdoor or LinkedIn, because a lot of those don't really update fast. There is a lot of listings on those programs or those sites that are not necessarily actual jobs, like ghost jobs, if you've ever heard of that. And if there's a company that you want to work for, or if there is a certain field you want to go into, one thing that I've actually found is really helpful is to just go to that company's website and look at their careers page and just bug them. Some places will even have something called a general application, where if there's not a specific role, you can just submit your resume. And it's kind of hit or miss, but it is another avenue that you can employ with getting your foot in the door somewhere. I have used this a lot over the last year. I lost count. Well, I stopped counting places I applied to after about 2,000 applications. So I have a pretty big library of all of these things. And it's still very hard. It is very competitive to find a job right now. Frankly, I would love if I don't even need to get another job. I would love to just be able to pivot to this, but it seems like that's a longer term solution than people like me need right now. So just be kind to yourself too. Know that even if you don't find something right away, like every rejection kind of stings, but eventually you're going to get to a point where somebody doesn't reject you, and eventually it will come. And I hope that nobody that watches this channel is having to struggle with any of these things. But if you are, I really hope that this advice helps. And I really hope that you're able to find what you need, and that these things help you, even if it's just to make you more confident in the ways that you're going about your search. Coming this week, I am planning on doing another pepper video, which I'm really excited about. And I have a couple things in store that might be a little longer term, but we'll see. But some things are going to be a little bit more comedic. This channel is not something I intended to be so serious, and I really do like doing helpful content and inspirational content, but I would still like to explore some variety, especially while this channel is young, so I can really, find what sticks with All Night ASMR. So with that, I'm going to say goodnight. If you're still watching, you can let me know by putting the emoji on screen now in the comments. I hope you have a great night, a great weekend. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Good night. I have been going around different places, doing some contracts, doing a little freelancing, trying to find a permanent role for about a year, give or take, with the exception of, at least one contract that I've done in that time. But when I entered the job market, I found that right now it is a lot different than other times when I've been looking for a job. I mean, for one thing, it's, understandably completely online at this point. And there are things like LinkedIn and Indeed and different job hunting services, and those have their strengths, they have their pitfalls, I've found. But I was lucky enough to also have some friends and family that work in HR, and they gave me some really good advice. So, cutting back, let's start with